Now, in this second video, what I'm going to try and do is go through a couple of answers to illustrate particularly the aspect of peel and the type of structure you should be giving your sentences and generally your answer to successfully answer a discussion type 9-mark question. If we just look at this answer first, what I've done in the first paragraph is just highlighted a couple of parts of sentences. If we take the P as the point, so that is a general point relating to lower income countries and hazards and impacts. I've highlighted that in orange here. So LICs are less well prepared for an event. That is a very simple statement which relates to hazard management, the preparation, and it relates to the question because it's talking about LICs. So that's the point. Now, it doesn't, the peel strategy doesn't always have to contain the point, evidence, explain, and link in that order. So in these answers, we may find that the point is not necessarily followed directly by the evidence. Perhaps there's a bit of explanation mixed in, and perhaps there's a bit of linkage mixed in, and then the evidence comes somewhere thereafter. So in this example, we've got underlined in green some element of explanation. So LICs are less well prepared for an event because of the basicness of warning systems and lack of understanding. Now that I commented and said there could have been an expansion of that and a further relation to LICs. So why are there basic warning systems? Why is there a lack of understanding? Well, this person could have tried to relate this back to the economic condition of the country. So the amount of money which is able to be spent on installing and monitoring these systems, such as satellite systems, weather buoys, overflights of tropical storms to track them, volcanic monitoring equipment, and so on. And then in red, what I've done is I've underlined some element of case study evidence. So notice in the structure, nowhere has this person started with in Mitch, in Floyd. Okay, there's no narrative here. This is a point, some element of explanation, and then some element of case study evidence to illustrate the point. This is evident when Hurricane Mitch hit Honduras, as they only found out about the hazard 3 days before it. Because of this, over 20,000 people died in total. Okay, so that's the first example. If we move further down, we might just look at these two paragraphs. And again, it's quite easy here to pick out the general points. So here's the first one. LICs also tend to have poor levels of building quality. Down here at the start of the third paragraph, LICs tend to have poorer levels of organisation and coordination. They are points, which, if we look down through the rest of the paragraphs, are then illustrated by evidence. So here, 25 villages in Honduras were washed away in Hurricane Mitch. And further down here, if we look to evidence, there's a little bit of evidence at the bottom here, looking at Hurricane Floyd and evacuation, which relates to the level of organisation and coordination. Okay. And finally then, overleaf, the concluding paragraph, we've got some element of relation back to the economy, sufficient funds to use on preparation and recovery. There is some element of point. And again, what I've noted here is that there are elements of points and explanation here, but there's no exemplification in this area. So again, what this person could have done is given one or two figures just to illustrate how an LIC has struggled to fund the recovery. Okay, so that one got a mid-level 3, 8 out of 9. The second answer, very briefly, is a different type of answer, but nevertheless also successfully structures the sentences to answer the question. Starts off with a very good point here about vulnerability. Is largely due to poverty and poor governance, a brilliant sentence coined from Professor Ian Stewart, which an LIC has. and an HIC doesn't. So that's the general point. The next bit of evidence here is quite irrelevant. It's a bit of a case study dump, which a lot of you did. It doesn't necessarily link to the point, and it doesn't necessarily link on to the next point. So I would question that. But if we jump down to this sentence here, LICs generally in natural hazards have a greater death toll than HICs, another general point. And then we get into some sort of explanation, largely due to poor preparation, prediction and protection. Really good use of key terms from hazard management here. And then we have the evidence. 2.6 million people evacuated from the east coast of the USA during Floyd, which is, and then we go on to a bit of a link, which is great preparation as it means fewer people get hurt. Okay, so a very, very simple structure there, and it very successfully means that he is answering the question. Finally, the last thing to say, just going to come on to something that I had a go at writing. One tactic that you could use in the opening paragraph is to attempt to answer the question in as broader terms as possible. So what we're looking at here is the first paragraph that I've written in response to this question. And it is slightly longer than we would expect you to be writing in one of these 9 markers, but nevertheless it illustrates the point. As a paragraph, ask yourself the question when you read this, am I answering the question? And I hope the answer is yes. So I've put natural hazards such as earthquakes and tropical storms wreak a range of impacts, economic, social, physical, environmental, on areas they affect. So I'm tackling the question. In general, LICs affected by hazard events tend to suffer greater social impacts, so I'm classifying different types of impacts. I'm starting to discuss homelessness, food shortages, and so on, and physical impacts, building or infrastructure collapse, whereas HICs often suffer greater economic impacts, costs of reconstruction, repair, loss of business, trade activity. So already in that opening paragraph, I am referring to terms in the question, hazards, LICs, impacts, and I'm discussing. I'm saying, yes, I agree with the statement to a certain degree. I'm not agreeing down here. I haven't presented any case study information, but that is yet to come in the answer.